Astăzi, sectorul IT joacă un rol esențial în economia globală, stimulând inovația și dezvoltarea în toate domeniile. Dar cum poate Moldova să își găsească locul în acest sector și ce trebuie să facă pentru a reuși? Sau poate Moldova și-a găsit deja locul? Mă numesc Daria Slobodcicova și astăzi vom discuta cu Andrew Wrobel, expert în investiții IT și antreprenor social, care împreună cu alți specialiști a dezvoltat un ghid de investiții în IT pentru Moldova. Vom analiza cum poate Moldova să își consolideze poziția pe piața internațională și ce inovații așteaptă sectorul IT în următorii ani. Good afternoon, Andrew, and thank you for taking time to join us today. So could you provide more information about your guide on the IT market in Moldova? What kind of opportunities or advantages can Moldova offer for IT investors?
Thank you very much for this question. It's quite a robust question, and there's going to be a few different answers here. But let me start by actually emphasizing the need for the guide. I think, if we're looking at products like that, at content like that, it is important to understand that we, and probably every country, needs an independent overview of the sector, and something that will show not only the internal perspective, but also the external perspective of what a specific country has to offer. And this is exactly what this guide provides. So if you look at the content, on the one hand, we had a confidence survey. So we simply asked Moldovan companies about how confident they feel about the future, about the growth of the sector and opportunities, but also some more challenging questions like the geopolitical situation in the region and the impact of that situation on the IT sector. At the same time, we looked at C-level executives. We asked them, but I'm talking about C-level executives in 7 key markets. So, for example, the United States, the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Sweden, and also 2 neighboring countries, and I'm talking about Romania and Poland. Those 2 surveys were actually enriched by a series of in-depth interviews with what we call them our global influencers in the IT sector. So if you look at the entire picture, what the guide provides is a 360-degree overview of what the IT sector is all about in Moldova and what opportunities it provides. Now, if we dig a little bit deeper into the results of the survey, there are quite a few interesting facts. And one thing that is, for me, very interesting is the fact that Moldova is only second to Estonia when it comes to the number or the share of all the employees in the economy that are actually employed in the IT sector. So if you think about other countries like Ukraine, like Romania, like Poland, this share is lower. It's really interesting to see that as an example.
You have a very huge experience in different Eastern European countries. How competitive Moldova is to other countries?
Well, I think that this number that I just quoted is a very good example that shows that Moldova can and is a country that should be considered an IT destination, both in my opinion as a potential outsourcing destination, but also as a product destination where local companies are actually I know they are creative enough to come up with their own solutions that can be offered internationally. But because the IT sector has been growing exponentially in Moldova, the problem is that not everyone is familiar with the value proposition that Moldova has to offer.
How do you foresee the development of Moldova's IT sector in the next 5-10 years? What are the main areas for growth and innovation?
So I think what is really important to say is that when we spoke to the C-level executives across 7 markets, there were 2 key elements that they found really important that are present in Moldova. And one is the quality of the IT sector. So that is brilliant because you can see that international companies already recognize the fact that Moldova offers excellent quality in terms of their IT services. The other element was related to cost effectiveness. This is perhaps less favorable because it shows that the cost is a little bit lower, but maybe combined with the quality shows the opportunity. Because if you look at the development of the IT sector across Central and Eastern Europe, there are countries like Poland, like Romania as well, Hungary, the Czech Republic and others, and also the Baltic states, where the cost is already quite high. So I can see Moldova being able to really compete with these countries as well. Of course, the market is much smaller, so it's not going to be a huge number of large projects. It will probably be smaller projects, but you can see that there is the opportunity. And I think there's two more things that I always look at when I explore a specific market. One thing is the startup ecosystem, and the other thing is related to the digital transformation of public services. And here, I think a lot is happening as well. On the startup end, perhaps a little bit slower, but things are developing. If we look at the digital transformation of public services, I think here there's a lot that Moldova can boast about.
Just launched the EVA app yesterday, and it's a big step forward.
Evo, yes. And I think, again, this is something that perhaps not everyone knows about in Europe and beyond, and it's definitely something that Moldova should boast about, because I was comparing. I was at the stand yesterday, and I was looking at the app, and I am familiar with some other apps that are very similar. For example, in Poland, in Ukraine, and I have to say that the app is really good. There are way more functionalities than I happen to have a Polish app as well, because I am of Polish origin, so I have access to the Polish services as well. And I have to say that the Evo app has way more things, and mind you, it has just been launched. So you can see that the prospects are way more positive. And even yesterday, I had a chance to moderate a session about digital transformation and looking at what could potentially drive that digital transformation of public services in not only in Moldova but across the board. And we were at some point we were betting on when Moldova would be digital, close to 100%. And I have to say that instead of 2030, which is the government's goal, we all agreed that this could happen in 2027. So actually 3 years later, earlier than the government would like to complete the project.
Moldova faced threats of cyber attacks. How can it counter this?
I think, when it comes to cybersecurity and any threats related to security, these challenges are present across the world. So I wouldn't point to Moldova as being, one of the key countries that are where cybersecurity attacks are actually, most frequent. I think it's a matter of creating contingency plans. And I know that in our region, in a lot of cases, especially in relation to the war in Ukraine, we've had a lot of companies making sure that they had contingency plans in place. And that is something that can make the situation more predictable.
The war in Ukraine really has played a big role for us, and we face with such threats also because of it. But we are talking about the development of the IT sector in Moldova, and it can be attractive for investors. But what would you advise the Moldovan government? to improve our IT sector?
Well, I think there's quite a few things that I would suggest. I think perhaps, and this comes from the research that we've done, I think one thing that is interesting is that perhaps there is a bit too much focus on Romania. I totally understand that there are historical ties and interest, and probably quite a big chunk of the Moldovan population holds a Romanian passport as well. But I think that if we look at the results of the research, we can see that only a third of all respondents from Romania said that they would be open to collaborating with Moldovan companies, whereas the share was exactly the opposite, and it was 68% in Poland. So in countries like Poland seem to be more interested in collaborating with Moldovan companies, or maybe outsourcing in Moldova. And if you look at the UK market, Poland is really one of the top outsourcing destinations. So you already have a connection. By connecting with Polish companies, you can further connect with the UK market. So my advice would be perhaps to diversify the locations, the focus locations, and perhaps include countries like Poland on that list of potential destinations. And another one, I would say that perhaps it would be interesting to have a more unified approach to promoting the IT sector. We heard during the research, during the IDIs, that sometimes different stakeholders within the country think they play, first fiddle when it comes to promoting the IT sector. I think a more unified approach would be interesting and something that we would need. And finally, I would say that maybe revising the size of companies that become residents in the MITP park would be something to look at as well. I have a feeling that there are a lot of very small companies, and we are boosting the numbers a little bit too much because we're talking about over 1,700 residents, where in fact the bigger companies constitute only a sizable, but still not the full amount that we are talking about. So these are the things that I would recommend maybe looking at.
So I hope that Moldova is just taking the first steps in this direction, and we all hope that the Moldovan IT sector will be more developed in the future. Thank you for the interview, for the work you have done on this guide for Moldova, and I wish you further success.
Thank you very much. I also am very pleased that we have been invited to participate in that growth of the sector. So I'm delighted to be here too.